Hello, hello, hello. It is Moscow Mitch Monday. We are your Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Thank you so much for joining us on this final Monday evening before the big election. Woo! Anyone else a little nervous? A little freaking out? Anyone? Just me?
Just
All
me.
right.
Hello.
Yeah, it's we've been doing this for over 6 months, preparing for this day. So yeah, we put a lot of time and energy into helping educate Kentucky voters about how Mitch fails our Commonwealth and about why we need to retire him tomorrow. Let's see if it pays off. You know, but we have not spent the millions that some have. So in terms of time investment, I feel like this is pretty significant. In terms of dollar investment, there are others who've spent more. Certainly. Anyway, it's a great show. Our kind of final pre-election show. We're of course going to be opening up with Mitch in the news because every week he's in the news doing something horrible. We got Doug following Mitch's money. He's doing a kind of top 5 of Mitch's kind of worst moments since he's been doing that deep dive into Mitch's campaign finance related actions or inactions rather. This week our guest is Dr. Twyna Bell, who's an educational researcher who's going to be sharing her thoughts with us. She actually is she's at minorityfamilies.org to learn more about her and her work. We've got the Fayette County Democratic Party Chairman Josh Mers joining us in Campaigns Corner. We got a video from our event this weekend where Kentucky State Senator Reggie Thomas and Mike Broihier will share we've got a video of what they shared with us this weekend. We have got just one day to go. So, if you haven't voted yet, tomorrow's the day. Make your plan, make it happen. And with 24 hours to go, just over 24 hours to go until this, just under 24 hours to go until this election is over, we just have a few minutes to have an impact on the race. So please do help out, pitch in however you can. Spread the word, help us educate Kentucky voters in this final push. Mitch does not care about you, right? He just doesn't. I've been texting a lot of voters. We've got our through text campaign right now where we're making our way through, tens of thousands of voters in the Kentucky 6th District. And people just really seem, to think that the only issue that matters is abortion, right? So somehow the corporate Republicans have convinced people in Kentucky that that's the issue that's on the ballot. We know there's a whole lot of issues that are on the ballot, and we need to educate folks about what those issues truly are, and how Mitch's corporate agenda really just leaves us high and dry again and again and again. One thing that we learned through this show that I thought was very telling is that you cannot get any of Mitch's time unless you donate $25,000 to him. Right? Like, I'm sorry, but that's not representative democracy, right? When you have to pay $25,000 to get time with your elected official, it's really just bribery. And that is, what we're looking at right now. So unless you have $25,000, Mitch doesn't care about you. Oh, maybe if you are a young conservative judge, then you don't have to give Mitch $25,000 to get some of your time. You might even get a seat on some federal court. But that's really the only two kind of qualities that he looks for in people. The folks with money and some youthful judicial conservative credentials. So that's what we've got. And that's what we're going to be helping to tell people about this final push for this election. But excited about the show. Let's get into it. Quick introductions. As everyone knows, this is not just some talking head show on the internet. This is a digital demonstration against Mitch McConnell. So we want to keep that demonstration happening. Who are you? Where are you coming from? And what does your protest sign say today? So I'm Aaron. I am coming at you from Chilesburg, a lovely community in Lexington. And my protest sign says today, vote for a functioning democracy, #ditch Mitch. Nate, are you there, Nate? Can you join us? What's your sign say today?
I'm nearly here. Hey, folks, this is Nato Arshan broadcasting live from Kits in my lovely home here in South Frankfurt. And today, my sign would say it's going to be a big sign. Mitch equals depraved indifference to your suffering. Amy equals moral compassion. Thank you.
Moral compassion. We need more moral compassion and less depraved indifference. That's for sure. Kimberly, how about you?
I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, home of Mitch McConnell. And actually, all day I've been shopping and I've been at Party City and the liquor stores and everywhere getting things together for Mitch McConnell's retirement party that's going to be here in Louisville, just to let you guys know. So, my protest sign says today, Mitch, you're out.
Fantastic. And that's definitely short enough to fit on a reasonable sized sign, unlike Nate's always very long words. All right, so let's do mention the news. I think we've got Kimberly with one of the big stories that's happening right now, or not happening right now, rather.
Exactly, Aaron. Right now, another stimulus. We've been waiting for so long. However, Trump says right after the election, there will be a stimulus plan. And Nancy Pelosi says ASAP. Mitch says not so fast. Maybe he'll start his negotiations at the end of this year. Mitch is doing everything in his power to blame Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats for the fact that there was no stimulus. But the reality is that the House and the White House were very close to a deal. A lot of people didn't know that, but they were very close to a deal. And the one thing that was very problematic about it was the House insistence on a contact tracing support program, which we need right now more than ever, which of course the White House opposes, just like they do COVID. They prefer to host super spreader events, not in them. But Mitch scuttled the entire negotiation because he thought it was politically bad for his senators. He wouldn't allow aid to states or local governments and wouldn't agree to much beyond a modest renewal of the Payroll Protection Program, otherwise known as the PPP, and some PPE support, as well as his massive effort for legal protections for irresponsible corporations, which is nothing new to us. And it was not a good faith negotiation in the slightest. Once again, Mitch McConnell shows exactly who he is. And instead of even bringing it to the Senate floor or having more conversations, we got a new Supreme Court judge. Go figure. It's Mitch McConnell every day of the week.
Yeah, nothing shocking, right? Nothing shocking about that agenda, about what, Mitch did. But again, I don't know if I mentioned this. I've sent thousands of texts to Kentucky voters, and besides abortion being the kind of top issue that people reply with, the other one is that Nancy Pelosi was the one who wouldn't agree to a stimulus, right? So Mitch is doing a really good job of blaming the Democrats for this, even though it was very clear what he was offering was this skinny stimulus program. Which, how do you do a skinny stimulus bill? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And as you said, Kimberly, the White House and the House were actually very close together and could have gotten something done, but Mitch decided, nope, not for us, not for his senators up for re-election. So that's where we are. So if you're pissed right now because you've not gotten a check and it doesn't look like you're going to get a check, don't blame Nancy Pelosi. Blame Mitch McConnell. So maybe don't vote for him tomorrow. All right, Nate, you got a story, right?
Yeah. And, hearing about the skinny stimulus makes me think that if he were a doctor like Mitch McConnell, the ER doctor, and they bring someone in with a gunshot wound and he announces to the staff, let's give this patient a skinny blood transplant, yeah, that would really work. So the headline tonight is Mitch doesn't care about your suffering. He only cares about big business friendly judges. So there's this legal term, depraved indifference. That sounds bad because it is bad. Let's check out the definition per the site US Legal. Quote, To constitute depraved indifference, the defendant's conduct must be so wanton, so deficient in a moral sense of concern, so lacking in regard for the life or lives of others, and so blameworthy as to warrant the same criminal liability as that which the law imposes upon a person who intentionally causes a crime. You can see where this is going, right? The guy who wants you to reelect him, Mitch McConnell, is the same guy who continues to manage the agenda of the Senate with depraved indifference for the risk of your suffering, not to mention your actual suffering. I'm not talking about whether he makes public statements expressing concerns for Kentuckians. I'm talking about what he's actually doing in the Senate right now. As we've heard already this night, what he needs to be doing is passing coronavirus relief, which we really should call it what it is. It's recession relief, because we have fallen into a recession thanks to the mismanagement of the pandemic in America by President Trump and the Republican leaders who support him, e.g., Mitch McConnell. Actually, they should put Trump's picture in the legal dictionary next to the definition of depraved indifference, but I digress. Is there a coronavirus relief bill that the Senate could be considering and voting on? Why, yes. Just a month ago, October 1st, the House of Representatives passed a modified version of the HEROES Act for $2.2 trillion. That's a big number, but for comparison, the 2017 tax cut that gave most of its money away to corporations and the wealthy, that's costing us $2.3 trillion over 10 years. So it's not like Mitch and the Senate are scared of big numbers. But what is he actually scared of? Ooh, that's like a tie into Halloween. Mitch is scared of not being able to keep packing the judiciary with radical activist judges who are approved by the Federalist Society because they'll consistently rule in favor of big business and the wealthy, not for the interests of regular Kentuckians like us and you. He's so scared that he may not be able to keep going on with this evil work of doing nothing but confirming these radical judges that he's putting off what? Yes, coronavirus relief. Just this last Friday, October 30th, Mitch told radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt that instead of acting on the relief bill, he is going to have the majority Republican Senate do pretty much nothing but keep confirming these activist judges up until Congress adjourns on January 3rd. Quote, "We're going to run through the tape. We're going to clean the plate, clean all the district judges off as well." But the relief bill. Nope. Here's what Mitch told Hugh Hewitt in that same radio interview. Quote, "We probably need to do another package." Probably? "I think that'll be something we need to do right at the beginning of the year." Oh, I see. So while so many Kentuckians are increasingly at the end of their rope, Mitch McConnell is going to run through the end of his tape of radical judges. So while a huge and growing number of Kentuckians don't have food on their plates, Mitch McConnell is fixing to clean his own plate of radical judges who will consistently rule in favor of corporations and the 1%. And while so many Kentuckians are living with the fallout of our current national recession that has no end in sight, Mitch McConnell is telling us, hey, just tighten your belt through Christmas, and maybe I'll let the Senate revisit getting you some emergency money after New Year's. Hey, my fellow Kentucky voters, do we really want to reward this man's depraved indifference to the suffering that could have been prevented with responsible leadership in the White House and the Senate? Please, don't you be indifferent to it. Vote for Amy McGrath to end this reign of irresponsible, gratuitous cruelty, and let's get our government working for all of us again. For Moscow Mitch Monday, I'm Nate Orshan.
Thanks, Nate. Depraved indifference. That's our senator, folks. Which this sounds familiar, right? Because if you think about it, a year ago, what was Mitch doing? I think he was defending Trump over a government shutdown, right? Like there was a government shutdown over the holidays. So, government workers, people who worked at federal prisons who don't have a lot of, room in their budgets to begin with were, kind of forced to go without over the holidays because, there was a fight over funding of the wall. And Mitch, of course, wouldn't ever, dare cross Trump. So I guess that gives a little bit of context for my story, which is actually an opinion piece from Sunday which Linda Blackford wrote, asking, will Mitch McConnell act like a statesman on November 4th? So it's a great column. If you don't read Linda Blackford's work, you really should. I think she does an amazing job. But she harkens back to the election a year ago, just a year ago, when Matt Bevin was running, to be governor again, and with a very narrow margin, lost to Andy Bashir, thank God. But what happened, if you recall, was Bevin started making these, allusions to irregularities in the elections, right? So basically saying that no, this election could have been stolen. There's a lot of irregularities, and I think there were a couple of irregularities, which were a handful of votes, because it's an imperfect world and there are irregularities in our world, but there was not any sort of widespread efforts to keep votes from being counted. There's no efforts to tip the scales in in Andy Bashir's favor or anything like that. It was just some county clerks who made a couple mistakes, right? And so when they actually certified the results and recanvassed the results, there was no change. But what was interesting was, while that was happening, we had some, I hate to give them this, this credit, but like statesman-like behavior from the state capitol in Frankfurt. Specifically, Jason Nemes from Louisville said the best thing to do right now is for Governor Bevin to concede the election so he can move on. So, actually calling on Bevin to just stop making any sort of claims he couldn't back up. And Senate President Robert Stivers said, it's time to call it quits and go home. Say he had a good 4 years and congratulate Governor-elect Bashir. And this was before the recanvass, right? So, basically a lot of Republicans were willing to say, look, there's no there. He should stop talking about this. He should just accept this election. So the real question is, will Mitch McConnell play a role like this, in, say, 48 hours, right? And I think if you are banking on the future of our democracy, on Mitch McConnell acting like a statesman and challenging Trump on any level, I think we are going to hell in a handbasket, right? Because I don't think Trump's never really been checked by McConnell. Everyone knew McConnell didn't really like Trump, but he absolutely was happy to get into bed with him when he was elected, right? And doesn't ever call him out, except for in the most egregious instances, he'll maybe issue a statement that is against something similar to the egregious instance, but never calls Trump out by name, right? So it is, his political calculation is that kind of willingness to just let Trump trample the presidential office, is absolutely worth it in these, as we just heard from Nate, young conservative judges being appointed. He knows that's how he wants to change our political landscape and to do it for a generation. He doesn't care if Trump is wholly, destroying and degrading the office of the president. So it's hard to expect Trump to, have a check in the Senate majority leader in whatever crazy town he's going to do, right? He's already announced. I mean, we don't talk about Trump on this show very much because it doesn't really, factor into the Senate race a ton, but it absolutely, the outcome of this election, is seriously going to be in question by Trump's behavior. He has said already, the quiet part out loud, that they are going to flood Pennsylvania with their attorneys to stop counting the votes, because he's pretty sure that he'll be able to win if they just count the day of election, because of course he told everyone not to vote early because people find their ballots in the creek or whatever the hell like crazy he was spinning out, right? So he understands, I think, they've got polling, and I'm sure their polling shows he's going down, right? So he's trying desperately to hold on to this office, and he does not care about the integrity of our institutions if he has to destroy them to hold on to them. So the single best counterweight to Trump's unhinged behavior, which we can, I think, bank on seeing, this time tomorrow and later, would be the Senate majority leader. And, I like I said, I don't think he'll step up, but I think we should pressure him to do so. no matter your party. But I think that's what we got in store for us. I think between now and the next time you see us on Moscow Mitch Monday, things could get very interesting, and I'm very hopeful that we'll see some actual leadership, but I am not going to hold my breath. All right, so that's Mitch in the news. You can find links to all those stories in our comments. So if you want to go deeper dive yourself in any of those stories, just do it, click on the links. But our next segment, which I'm really excited about tonight, is our Campaigns Corner. So our quick 5-minute interview to help educate our viewers about what's going on in the larger progressive political ecosystem here in Kentucky. How can folks get involved? How can folks be a part of making Kentucky a more progressive politically progressive state? And what we have with who we have with us tonight is the new-ish Fayette County Democratic Party Chair, Josh Mers. Josh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
So yeah, tell us, I think that's right. You're kind of new, right? You haven't been there that long.
Yeah, so I'm new to the chair of the Fayette County Democratic Party. I've been on the executive committee since like 2012 when I was the president of the Fayette County Young Democrats. So I've been around the county party for quite a while, but as the chair, that started in July.
Gotcha. Yeah, quiet time to take over.
Perfect time to jump in.
How's it been going? What have you guys been up to?
Oh my gosh, it's been going great. We are the county party that all the other counties across the state really look to see how to do things. We did 14,000 texts over the weekend alone to Fayette County. That doesn't count the calls and the text and the lit drops. We delivered a total of about 6,000 yard signs for every campaign from the top to the bottom of the ticket in one weekend. So we've got an amazing volunteer crew. I think everybody is pushing to the last minute. I know there's still some phone banking going on for some county volunteers right now as we speak. And I think we're all just trying to get to the finish line tomorrow.
Absolutely. And as someone who received a shipment of yard signs, I want to say thank you. That was fantastic. It's like better than my newspaper delivery. It came out, oh, look, there it is. Well-timed so that even my very uptight HOA couldn't get mad at me about putting them out too early, which was lovely.
Same here.
Cool. And which races are you guys watching? Or are you seeing the most kind of volunteer engagement and activity?
Well, I mean, the McGrath campaign definitely kind of takes center stage. I think everybody is, and it happens every 6 years, that we are so excited for that opportunity to end Mitch's now 36 years in the U.S. Senate, that we get volunteers asking, nonstop to be part of the McGrath campaign and how can they help. The good news is that we coordinate all of our efforts. So a volunteer that comes to the county party for McGrath is also helping Josh Hicks for Congress, is also helping our state legislative candidates, and even our magistrate candidate in the 1st District. Everything else is nonpartisan. It's on the ballot, so we don't get involved in that. But it allows us to coordinate up and down the ballot and really get the most bang for our volunteer effort.
That's fantastic. Cool. Oh, and I guess I'm going to ask you, I always skip this question. What would your protest sign say today? What would you be holding up there, Josh?
Probably something along the lines of 36 years. Are you effing kidding me? I wasn't sure if I was allowed to actually say the real word, so I figured I'd just give the letter on there.
That's probably good. I mean, it's a family show. I don't know that it is. I don't know that we have any kids watching. I don't think this is really a big in the kid demographic. But yeah, I gotcha. I appreciate that. We want to keep it clean. All right. Any questions for Josh from the co-hosts, Nate or Kimberly?
Gosh,
you don't have to. It's fine.
Can't even.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, yeah, I guess what's the breakdown of volunteers? Like, when I think of, especially on election day, you think of poll workers and they tend to be older and whatnot, but I'm curious about sort of what the demos are for the folks that you've got helping you.
We've got everything from, I think the oldest volunteer right now is about 88 years old. I think she is. And then we've got everything down to high school kids that are out doing lit drops on weekends. And then I think that the texting, a big push for the weekend was that the Kentucky Young Democrats messaged me and said, "Hey, we've finished texting everything that we've been given by KDP. Do you have anything for us?" And so they tackled several thousand just right out of the gate for us for the weekend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kimberly, you have a question for Josh?
Yes, just want to say, Josh, congratulations on your new position there. And it sounds like you're already doing some great things. So I guess I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a statement. Congratulations. And we'll be talking real soon.
Well, thank you so much. Don't forget that you all have over there in Louisville, the largest county party. And I know that they are just like us, always looking for new members to join the executive committee to make sure that the progressive community and our community as a whole is represented. And that's one of the things that I'll point out is keep in mind that every 4 years, the Democratic Party from the precinct level all the way up to our national committee has to reorganize. Typically, that's done in a presidential election year, but because of COVID, we postponed it. So 2021, where there are no elections on the ballot, unless there ends up being a special election for the state of Kentucky, we get to reorganize the party. And you bring up, as you kind of led into this intro, how can we help to make sure that Kentucky becomes a more progressive, more forward-thinking state? Well, it starts right at your local level on the party. Get involved as a precinct person. Get involved on our local executive committees. Get involved on the state central executive committee. That's how you make changes to the Democratic Party within Fayette County and within Kentucky as a whole.
Awesome. Great. And so, yeah, as you said, like every 6 years, people get excited because they want to take down Mitch. Hopefully, that ends tomorrow. But yeah, what do you want people to get involved with the actual organization itself in terms of its leadership? That's the best way to help out, or what else should people know?
Well, no, I mean, that's a huge piece to it. That's how you really can kind of shape the direction of the party itself. The volunteer effort is huge. Find your candidates that you love and adore, and you just think that they are the greatest thing to happen to Kentucky politics since forever, and volunteer. They need it. They need your donations, even if it's a $5 donation. They need your sweat and your tears. I ran for office, and probably the greatest moment when I lost was seeing the emotional effect on the people that had put months and months of effort into the supporting my campaign. It really made you feel like you had possibly changed the conversation a bit. And so that's great. And then the other part is run for office. We don't do a good job as Democrats and progressives in Lexington, where our council races are nonpartisan, of trying to help progressive candidates be a part of, the most localized government that interaction that we've got. More stuff happens at 200 East Main, that's City Hall here in Lexington, than change that happens in Frankfort or Washington any day of the week. And we need good, bright, progressive minds to sit on that council, because I think people take for granted that Lexington is this island of blue in a sea of red, and they take for granted how close that council is to being a conservative majority council. And we need more folks involved in that.
That's a really good point. That is a great point. Thanks, Josh. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, and we're excited to help the Fayette County Democratic Party, beyond tomorrow. Let's check back in, but thanks for getting us that information.
Thank you, guys. Keep at it. And, here's to celebrating in 24 or maybe 48 or 72 hours, however long it is.
However long it takes for all the votes to be counted. God damn it,
Exactly.
Donald Trump. Every single vote. We're not making any decisions until they're all counted. All right. Thanks, Josh. All right. Next up, we have got our call to action. For this one, we're actually going to bring in the weekend's speakers. So we didn't have, the entire crew show up for our Saturday event, but we had some amazing speakers. And so we wanted to share them with you. And I think Ken's got it queued up for us.
First off, I want to recognize State Senator Reggie Thomas, who's come out to join us.
But let me tell you, aren't you just fired up and ready to go? I'll tell you, I got up this morning. I've been talking to some of these groups, and I tell you, I am ready. And what's the important thing? I am ready to retire Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
36 years is long enough. And I want to tell you, Kentucky, it's right to me, Kentucky can do better. And folks, I tell you, we need a change. It is time for a change. And it is time for Amy McGrath.
Yes, it is.
I just want to echo what my good friend Aaron said. We've got a senator here who can rush through a justice for the Supreme Court, but can't do anything to help people who are hungry and starving and out of work here in our own state.
That's right.
He can put a justice on the court, but he can't put bread on our table. Just think about that.
That's right.
He can find time to do all of Trump's bidding, but he can't bid for our own health and our own protection on this virus.
Nope. That's right.
Mitch McConnell, and I want to report this, Mitch McConnell is as much responsible for these 20,000 to 30,000 deaths in America as Donald Trump.
Yeah, he is.
Mitch McConnell is Donald Trump's chief enabler.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on Tuesday, we're going to see a major change here in this country.
Yes.
And Kentucky is going to lead the way. We're going to put Amy McGrath in.
Yep.
Amy McGrath, a patriot, a soldier, a pilot, someone who represents us, who's going to be a voice for us, as opposed to Mitch McConnell, a voice for the wealthy. So, let's stay resolute.
Yep.
Let's stay strong.
Yep.
Let's stay firm.
Yep.
And on Tuesday, let's stay victorious. Thank you. Aaron, we'll turn it back over to you.
You cannot believe how good it is for me to see you all. It just fills my heart. It is really, really amazing. So this is my last speech of the 2020 campaign season. And for me, that season started in July of 2019, when it was just Lynn and I driving around in the Prius, and we ended up being Lynn and I driving around the Prius. But I'll tell you what I want to say, though. I want to say to everyone, and I know there's a couple of you here who supported my campaign, I am so incredibly proud that when the primary concluded in June, you gracefully accepted the results of the primary, and you immediately went to work to get Colonel McGrath elected to the United States Senate. And that shows an incredible deal of maturity, an incredible deal of character, and I'm more than proud. I cannot imagine to be associated with you, and thank you. All right.
Come on.
Woo! So I am optimistic, looking forward to Election Day. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I am not optimistic about what happens, because no matter whether we take the White House, we take the Senate, we retain the House of Representatives, I am still concerned that we are under threat, whether or not we'll remain a nation of laws. And that is what is most important to me. And so I'm concerned about the future. And it is with great caution, with great respect, that I want to borrow a phrase from our Jewish brothers and sisters who survived the Shoah. And their phrase is, never forget. Never forget. Because we cannot forget what has happened in the last 4 years, when the absurd and the violent, the things that were unthinkable when President Obama ran this country have become so normal they don't even make headlines anymore. So I want to use the phrase, never forget. We never forget the cretins that crawled out from under their rocks, the racists, the bigots, the people full of hate who came out from under their rocks when Donald Trump was elected. Me, as a person of privilege, I didn't see them on a day-to-day basis, but they were always there. And I'll tell you what, I see them now, and I will never forget. And I don't want you to forget either. I'll tell you what I also will never forget. We're never going to forget that the killers of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, were allowed to walk free. And we can't forget the people who were killed, and we cannot forget the people in the system that enabled their killers to walk these streets today. Never forget.
Yes, sir.
There are other things we absolutely cannot forget. And I don't want to take too much time. There's signs to be waved, but most importantly, I want you never to forget that Mitch McConnell is the one who packed our judiciary, our federal bench, with judges with lifetime appointments, with people who are hostile to women, hostile to reproductive choice, hostile to LGBTQ persons, hostile to labor, and hostile to immigrants. Okay? And this is his final screw you to America and democracy. But thank God on November 3rd, November 5th, it will be his last chance to say screw you to American democracy. Now I want to conclude with two more things. Right here in Fayette County last night, there were 10,000 ballots that have not yet been returned. That means some of us here know people who haven't turned in their ballots. So this weekend, please go home, call your friends, call your relatives, call your neighbors, and help them get their vote in. Because one thing we learned in the 2018 gubernatorial election is every single vote counts. And the last thing I want to say to you is this, is that while I want you to exercise your right to vote, your right to assemble, your right to petition your government, I want you to do it, particularly in the next couple of weeks, with a great deal of caution. Because there are people out there who are itching for a fight. There are militias, there are politicians, there are even some churches who are advocating for a civil war in this country. They're ready to turn a verbal confrontation into a firefight. So please, keep doing what you're doing, but be careful, because we have a lot of fights ahead of us. That's it. Aaron, thank you so much for having me. Senator, thanks so much.
You ready to have me back? Are we back now? We're back right now? Folks, we're back, and we're back. Thank you so much for, Reggie and Mike. These are just great guys, and great public servants, and, kind of just embody that servant leadership that I think is so important. And man, we got to get Mike. Mike needs to be somewhere doing something. I'm not going to say he's wasted on the farm, because I've never tried his asparagus. But I do think that, he's a guy that should be in public life some way for sure. Although, he's a great activist too, and he comes out for the right causes. So we're glad he could partner with us for that event. All right, so now we're going to go to our interview. This is really exciting. We have got Dr. Twyna Bell, LPCC, the Chief Director of Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion at minorityfamilies.org. Dr. Bell is a licensed clinical mental health therapist specializing in trauma-informed self-care. As a scholarly practitioner, Dr. Bell has a research agenda that focuses on the integration of social justice, higher education, and post-COVID-19 behavior health care, which that is a mouthful. But it sounds super important. And we're so glad that you're joining us. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Bell.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I got to ask, if you were going to have a protest sign, what would your protest sign say tonight?
My protest sign would say One Tree, HEAL, One Tree Heal. It is a time for our nation to heal together as one. And it would be a picture of a tree.
Awesome. Coming and bringing us together. I love it. That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about kind of your practice and kind of what you do. And besides the words I just read, what does that actually mean?
So basically, like you spoke earlier, I am a servant leader. And so my leadership is really geared towards empowering and uplifting individuals and helping families, children, communities to thrive and to really consider their functioning from a biopsychosocial framework. So that ecosystem that you spoke of earlier, from an ecological framework, and understanding the importance of mind, body, and soul, and how it makes us, it gives us the balance that we need.
Oh, wow. So would the term holistic fit into this?
Yes, absolutely. Natural and holistic.
So great. Okay, Nate, I think Nate has a question for you.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Bell.
Hi.
So glad you're here. So, hey, the experience of chronic trauma and the disorders that can result from it seems like this eternal epidemic that robs so many people of the chance for successful relationships or successful employment or just plain healthy well-being as adults. And with all that in mind, I'm wondering what would a more enlightened, more trauma-informed government policies look like to address this?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, as we know, in order to provide effective evidence-based practice, meaning that services and techniques and modalities that have been researched and have been proven effective, there needs to be support from a policy level. And so one of the things that the administration, can really push is the need and to implement evidence-based practices. Oftentimes what we find is that some of the larger entities have access to the funding, and we often refer to those entities as the golden child. But there are communities that are dealing with health disparities, mental health issues, and they tend to not have the access that's needed for the effective services to be implemented. And so from a policy framework, I think if we have more advocates that really understand and that's very intentional about rolling out monies and programs to support these efforts, we would see better impact. We'd see an increased a decrease in violence, and it all just goes hand in hand. People are really hurting.
Well, Dr. Bell, I have a question, but I had to write it down because it's a pretty long question, but it needs to be asked. It's so important about this question. A lot of people are anxious and depressed and frightened right now because of the toxic political environment that we're living in. There are a lot of right-wing groups that are threatening violence all across this country and civil unrest if the election doesn't go their way. In the clip earlier, we saw that Mike Broihier suggested that we take extra precautions to stay safe in this moment that we've never really experienced in our lifetimes before. If we find ourselves in a dangerous situation, what are ways we can de-escalate potential violence between family and friends and in public? How can we de-escalate some things?
Yes, I think the first thing that we have to realize is that we have to just implement a framework where we are responding to situations from a proactive manner versus reactive. And so I often use the illustration in my sessions. You have a bottle of water, and then you have a soda pop. And if I shake this bottle of water up and take the top off, nothing's going to happen. It's calm, it's settled, and everything's balanced. But when you take the top off of a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or a Mountain Dew, it's going to explode. And so one of the things that we need to be very intentional about is making decisions, stop, think, listen, evaluate our actions, and be proactive versus reactive. And that's in every realm. That's when we are going to the grocery stores, when we're going outside. That's when we're communicating with our family members. And, we have to be support agents to each other. And oftentimes with the modality of PCIT, parent-child interaction therapy, one of the things that we really focus on is teaching laypersons how to be the co-therapists. So at this time of unrest, we have to be the change agents within our own households and also within the communities. And when we can model that balance, positive, healthy behavior, we can definitely impact others in reference to the responses. And so we just have to stop and think and process and really respond to any situation from a proactive framework.
That's great. So be like the water, not. All right, kind of a related question, right? So, for half of this country, they will be disappointed in the results from tomorrow's election. Our friends, our loved ones may be depressed, they might be angry, might potentially have other mental health issues if their candidate isn't elected. What are some good resources to find or self-assessment tools to work out anxiety and stress in this moment to help us, find the kind of self-care tools we need, and how do we them ourselves?
I think one of the biggest thing that has come out of all of this is that mental health services, they're accessible to everyone at this time, meaning that, we've gotten off of the couch. Okay, we've flipped the couch over. So telehealth services is a service that is going to give everyone access from the comforts of their home or wherever they're located. BetterHelp is one place where you can find a therapist. You can also visit us at minorityfamilies.org. We serve a variety of families and children. And most of the time, people need to understand that there is typically a very low cost that's associated with being able to engage with a therapist. But I think the biggest thing is just understanding that it is okay to process. We all are experiencing overdose, media overdose, the TV shows, the news, everything that's going on, the fear that's associated with the election. So we're a hurting group of people right now. And even our healthcare professionals, we're working more hours than ever before. But I think that if people just, reach out and access services, just to have someone to chat with or to do a self-assessment by identify what are your stressors? What is it that is giving my body this reaction that is not typical? And once you're able to identify those stressors, then you can begin to go down your list of things that as your individual self, how can I be a better me? What regulates me? For example, I love to go on walks and I love to see water. And so those are the things that are on my anchor list. If you create an anchor list for yourself, if you erase and slide the box over and everything that makes you happy and that brings comfort to your mind, body, and spirit, what are those things? So when you begin to experience an increased stress level, you can go to that anchor list. And that anchor list is going to give you that shift and that relaxation that you need. Also, a really, really big thing that we're pushing is, relaxation strategies and deep breathing, okay? Just a simple breath. Just to be able to stop, take a deep breath. And just release, turn it off. So when you find yourself, we call it your thermometer, and when your thermometer begins to increase, you can just literally, that is a tool that you have with you all the time to just stop and take that deep breath and release that deep breath. And when you release that deep breath, we want you to release it like, we've worked with a lot of children in the Louisville area that were definitely impacted by the trauma as it relates to the protest and all the unrest, that nature in their neighborhood. And so we received calls all times of the night. And so we conducted an intervention with the deep breathing techniques, and we had great results. Oftentimes those kids are continuing to use just that simple strategy. It's very simple. It's about being our own self-managers and self-care. That means that, we're going to the Zoom meetings and we have these deadlines, and we're now working from home, which means that we have to juggle not only ourselves and our work life, but also our families. We have to keep up with the public and the political events that's going on. And I think the most stressful thing for a lot of our adults is the unknown. We don't know what the outcome is. We don't know what it is. However, if we can put rituals in place from the time we wake up in the morning, one of the things that we want to encourage you to do is back to the water. Start off by drinking, hydrating your body first thing in the morning, taking those deep breaths and just grounding yourself before you go into the grind and the responsibilities that you have.
That's fantastic. This is so helpful. This is so wonderful. I think it's very well timed for us to be able to, put some of these practices into place. And I know Kimberly has a question that she wants to ask.
Yes, Kimberly.
Dr. Bell, I've been hearing about a certain self-care facility that has been opened up in the Frankfurt area.
Yes. We're really, really excited about the self-care solution. And basically what the self-care center is, it's a place where everyone can come, families, children, individuals, and just receive resources and engage in complementary treatment modalities that's going to help them to maintain the balance that they need. And so at the self-care center, we're really, really pushing the natural way of being healed, the natural healing techniques, because oftentimes you go to your therapist's office or through a telehealth, intervention program, you may spend 1 hour or 2 hours a week with that therapist, but what happens after that therapist isn't available to you? And so we promote and we educate on natural healing resources such as essential oils and diffusing, the importance of, just putting a diffuser in your home with lavender, or, having the opportunity to put wild orange in your diffuser to just kind of give you that boost. It's been particularly effective. You're at your computer all day, but you're running your diffuser. And so the potency of the oils, back to, when it all started, the natural way, there are healing properties to those oils. And so using your diffusers throughout the day, positive affirmations, we're going to get through our country that is strong and we stand together. So in spite of all the political unrest and, the things that's going on in our country, back to reframing how we think and being able to have those reflections that's based on what we stand, where we stand with our togetherness. We will heal, we will come together, those positive affirmations. And when you begin to speak positive in spite of everything that's going on right now, it impacts your whole mind, body, and soul. I think about with this show and getting the invite and the information that you guys are actually putting out here, you're advocates, you're servant leaders, and there's going to be a positive outcome that is associated with the work that you're doing. However, there are going to also be listeners that is not going to respond in such a positive way. And so what we want to do is we want to practice self-compassion and compassion for other people. So although people may come to us from a very toxic, framework, we have to be able to address and identify, what's going on, but also have compassion for them to understand they're not making the right decision or they don't have the best interests of the country in mind. However, we're going to keep fighting and we're going to keep using our voices and we're going to advocate and we're going to stand together. And those are the things that's going to empower us and keep us moving forward.
That's so great. That's some fantastic stuff to take away from this interview, Dr. Bell. Thank you for sharing it all with us. And now we're going to move on to our weekly segment. Doug Price is amazing. Following Mitch's money, because we've got 6 months worth of looking at Mitch and his behaviors, and Doug has picked the top 5 Mitch actions or inactions.
I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route.
Good evening. Tonight's Following Mitch's Money will be my analysis of the top 5 worst actions or inactions Mitch has either undertaken or helped along the way to the detriment of Kentucky and our nation. Coming in fifth, Big Pharma. An article written by Josh Israel in the American Independent noted that Mitch announced in September 2019 his intention to block bills to lower prescription drug costs. 3 months later, Big Pharma had donated over $50,000 to Mitch. Mitch stated at the time, "Socialist price controls will do a lot of left-wing damage to the healthcare system." Could we use some price controls? Here is an example. In 1996, insulin cost $21 a vial and now costs $275 a vial. The same vial in Canada costs about $30. Money talks and Mitch listens. Coming in fourth, Mitch and the NRA. The Brady organization noted that the NRA had contributed $1.2 million to Mitch year. The latest measure to fall victim to McConnell's veto, H.R. 8, a package of gun control legislation. The bill passed the House in February 2019 and apparently is still sitting on Mitch's desk, along with 400 other bills. In the 2020 election cycle, the NRA has spent $5.7 million in contributions, lobbying, and PAC funding. Money talks and Mitch listens. Coming in third, Citizens United. In 2002, Congress passed the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act to control the money flowing into politicians. Mitch fought back against the BCRA and actually filed suit in 2003 that ultimately ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court. He lost that particular battle, but that actually may have set him on his effort to pack the courts. Ultimately, the 2010 Citizens United case opened the flow of unlimited cash into Mitch's pockets, and virtually as the courts ruled that money was protected, giving money was protected under the First Amendment right of free speech. On an earlier Moscow Mitch Monday, we had a guest tell us that she learned it cost $25,000 to even get a meeting with Mitch. Money talks and Mitch listens. Coming in second, does Mitch care about Kentucky? Mitch really does not care about Kentucky or all Kentuckians. He cares. The coal industry has given him over $950,000 during his time in the Senate. From 1918 to 2020, the coal industry has spent over $189 million in lobbying members of Congress. As another example, payday lenders have given Mitch over $140,000. These companies prey on the very people that Mitch will not help, those at or below the federal poverty level. Mitch has never voted to raise the minimum wage of $7.25. The federal poverty level computes to approximately $6.13 an hour, and Kentucky has over 800,000 people at or below the poverty level. Mitch has done very little to help the crumbling infrastructure in Kentucky, nor has he promoted programs that would specifically help eastern Kentucky counties devastated by the opioid crisis and the death of the coal business. Money talks. Coming in first, Mitch and the Supreme Court. In my opinion, the recent fast-tracking of Amy Coney Barrett is the very worst action McConnell has taken during his tenure in Congress. Her being on the court changes the makeup to a 6-3 conservative-leaning court. Mitch orchestrated this appointment, and this will be his legacy. From an op-ed by Linda Blackford of the Herald Leader. Harold Feynman recently described Mitch as the apex predator of American politics. McConnell is transforming the federal judiciary from sometimes defenders of the poor, immigrants, and people of color into the Praetorian Guard of corporations, the wealthy, and those whose cultural and racial privileges make them, at best, oblivious to their collective responsibility to all Americans. Mitch's mission is complete. His constituents' pain, their homelessness, hunger, sickness, is little more than an abstraction. He has answered the first question. He could help them, but he will not. The is why we continue to re-elect him. For the good of Kentucky, for the good of our country, already voted, vote tomorrow to ditch Mitch.
Make your money and go. 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 Make your money and go.
This part of impeachment will end today.
President Putin was extremely powerful.
Proud boys, stand back and stand by.
All right. Thank you, Doug Price, for always doing the homework and figuring out how Mitch is failing our state and how he's following the money to deliver horrible policy for all of us, or stop good policy. He probably mostly stops good policy because he doesn't really pass a lot, right? I get judges.
Grim Reaper.
That's the Grim Reaper. Get rid of that guy. All right. So I think that's the end of our show pretty much. We're going to throw it over to Kimberly to close us out.
Yes. Well, remember, committee, we've got just one day to win this thing big and retire Mitch to save our democracy. I know it sounds like some type of pitch line, but our democracy is at stake right now, more than what it's ever have been. So please, please, please make sure to take action right now. And what I mean by that is this, like this. It could look like terror and mayhem or possibly path back to normalcy. But the thing about it is that we're just going to incorporate some of the breathing and things that Dr. Bell taught us, and it will be fine. So tomorrow, if you have not voted, and you need to make sure you vote tomorrow. Your vote counts. There have been times that candidates have won with just one vote or 5 votes. Every vote matters. Every vote matters. So on Wednesday, what you can do, well, wait a minute, it's too late to vote, but you can still see Ken's art show. And now Friday is also going to be the last day to see Ken's art show, American Exceptionalism, the Counterculture, and the 100 Seconds Until Midnight. It will be running until November the 6th at the Lexington Art League at the Loudon House. This website is, yes, it is, www.lowercaseletters.com. You can also check him out at the Obliquity of the Eclectic. This is a mixed media show, both digital and physical art, that features activism. So Mitch Please is the song of this election cycle. And also I want to say this, join me on Sunday at 1 p.m.